There's some massive news to go over today as NHL insider Elliote Friedman has dropped a sickening new report surrounding Mitch Marner. And for the first time, we have some clear details surrounding what is going on between the negotiations on his side and the Leafs side. And it's a little bit crazy. You're going to want to stay tuned for that, as well as a few other updates surrounding the Leafs if things are really starting to pick up. But before we get into it all, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Leafs content. Your guys' support has been unbelievable. So thank you guys for that. We have what I'm going to call a sickening update, and it's not sickening in the sense of, fans are upset, Marner's most likely going to leave. Some of the details that are within this report are it's also new information, but it's weird. It is weird stuff going on. Let's not waste any more time. Let's dive right into it here. Just a little bit ago this afternoon on the 32 Thoughts podcast, Elliote Friedman came out and said the Leafs have tried talking to Mitch Marner, but his camp is not engaging in discussions. And he also said that some of Marner's teammates have privately suspected that he's planning to head out west, most notably the Kings or most likely the Vegas Golden Knights. So, Darius, for the first time, Elliote Friedman has broken the silence. And the interesting thing here is he didn't directly talk about the Andy Strickland report, which we'll dive into later, but he did say that his camp is not engaging in discussions, which, again, it's pretty clear cut to me, at least, that he's going to leave, but didn't even give the Leafs a chance to present an offer from what we're hearing here before he hits free agency. So I'm sure this is going to make everyone like him a lot more once he leaves. Jokes aside, a little bit. No, I didn't expect this one whatsoever.
Yeah, and there's a lot of negotiations going on through the media. We know that going back to what happened Friday as well, and we covered that on the channel. So there's a lot of that going on. So this could be a little bit more of that. And it sounds like it's coming down to, the Leafs and Marner's camp both saying it's done. We're moving on here. I think the Toronto Maple Leafs, what happened on Friday was mostly the organization, Brad Living, saying we have an internal deadline. We have to get going here. We have to make a decision on John Tavares, Matthew Nyes, and a bunch of other guys too, right? Like you have an RFA and Nick Robertson that, yes, you get to retain, but you should probably make a decision on that sooner rather than later. Same with Holmberg. What's happening with Calle Jarnkrok? Like we got to get making some moves here to make our team better. And, if Mitch Marner's holding that up, you got to set an internal deadline. So I feel like that was some of that. The other interesting thing I thought from Elliote Friedman was the fact that he said that some of his teammates are privately speculating that he's going to the West. So do his teammates and people around him not even know what he's doing at this point? I know it's not going to come out, but for him to mention that and use that wording, I thought was pretty interesting. But again, there's a lot going on with this situation. It sounds like he possibly could be going out west. We know, and we'll get to it in a little bit, that some Eastern Conference teams want to offer him a ton of money, which can make some sense because Mitch Marner to me, a lot of people are looking at it one way or the other, but Mitch Marner to me is a great hockey player and can probably get a team to the playoffs and he can help a team. But with the current makeup of the Toronto Maple Leafs, it just doesn't work. We know that it doesn't work. He doesn't perform in the playoffs, and that might be okay on another team if they do have guys who perform in the playoffs. But that salary cap structure, how much he wants to make, just doesn't work in Toronto anymore.
Yeah, and yeah, that part is very interesting. Obviously, his teammates have privately suspected. I mean, we've heard some interesting things, and just for a full little rundown, shout out to to someone here. They paraphrased it there, surrounding the entire 32 Thoughts, or I guess podcast. There's that people believe LA is interested in Marner, with Vegas being a team to watch, if not the team to watch on Marner. So most likely the favorites at this point. Rumor going around is that a few teams heard that he might look at a 4-year deal in free agency. He will not be taking a lesser AAV deal if it is a 4-year deal, and the Leafs have tried talking to his Marner, and his camp has not engaged with him. And again, so some more info here. 4-year deal would be very intriguing. I don't think it happens, but it is possible. I guess 4-year deal at $14 million a year. So then he gets a ton of money, over $50 million over 4 years. I mean, there's a lot of interesting, a lot of news that came out from Friedman today. Again, he didn't directly say what Andy Strickland said regarding,
Right.
him leaving for sure, but he did give, this is pretty clear cut to me, unless the Leafs are going to go into camp on July 1st and just fully negotiate with their camp, rather not go into camp, negotiate with their camp on July 1st and fully negotiate from scratch. I didn't like the Leafs odds regardless, given the price that these teams are going to pay, let alone if they're on an even playing field or maybe even a lesser playing field, given the media, things that he personally either took offense to or, didn't like about, the team there. And again, Vegas is one of the favorites for Mitch Marner. A report dropped a minute ago as of the time of recording from David Pagnotta saying that Carolina is willing to offer potentially more than $14 million a year, which again, they've been linked to him for a while, which would be just a devastating blow for the Leafs, just in the sense that they could have had Mikko Rantanen, but Marner declined the trade, well within his right to do so. But he'll probably could have become a very hated Leaf there if he goes that direction. But a bunch of new info here. Even a short-term deal is on the thing, which I don't hate for the Leafs, but again, they can't afford $14 million a year.
No, it doesn't. This doesn't make sense for the Toronto Maple Leafs. If Mitch Marner said, "Hey, I would love to return for $8 million," then I think like everyone would be like, "Okay, that makes sense," because now we can use some of that money to go out and better the team. But it's never been the case, and we know that this structure doesn't work. And the whole thing with I mentioned this a couple weeks ago that the shorter term deals. I think that's what he's actually trying to do, and that's not the only reason why, but that is a reason why his camp is not working with the Toronto Maple Leafs on a sign and trade because we've talked about it and for a lot of people, that eighth year would make a lot of sense. You're going to make more money. You're going to make more guaranteed money, right? So that could make sense on paper, but I don't think he's thinking that way, and his camp's not thinking that way. They want a shorter term, like an Austin Matthews type deal, like a 4 year, 5 year deal with the max amount of money, and then he can still cash in again because he's not going to be that old, and it won't be his last contract once that one expires. So I think that's actually what he's looking for. He has no interest in the eighth year. We talked about it, I think 2 weeks ago at this point on the channel that's why, or a reason why they don't want to work with the Leafs on a sign and trade. So I think he's headed to the open market. I think he wants as much money as possible. I do think that he wants to play for a team that is somewhat competitive. Like I think Anaheim's going to make a big push, but I don't see him going there because I feel like he does want to, play on a competitive team still that's going to make the playoffs and maybe have a shot at the cup. But that team's going to have to have a much different makeup than the Toronto Maple Leafs because Mitch Marner does not perform in the playoffs. We've seen it. It's hard for him to perform in the playoffs. He can get you to the playoffs. He's great in the regular season, all that stuff. He's a fantastic hockey player. I'll never discredit that. But in the playoffs, you can't get it done when it matters. And for the Toronto Maple Leafs and their salary cap structure, it doesn't make sense anymore. You have to allocate those dollars somewhere else for more depth scoring, figure out the bottom six as well. Because yes, it is a team game, but I felt like the top six had to perform because they were holding everything up with all that money kind of scrunched into four players.
Yeah, and obviously no one's arguing how good he was as a Leaf in the regular season. Again, the playoff success, especially now with what we're seeing from the Panthers, Brad Marchand, Sam Bennett. Mitch Marner played 70 playoff games during his career and his entire tenure as the Maple Leafs, nearly an entire season worth of games, scored 13 goals. And that's obviously going to be the big thing that, the hit on him in his Leafs tenure. But you see Brad Marchand in his mid to late 30s now performing at an unbelievable level, better than Mitch Marner ever did, and he's supposed to be in his prime. You have Sam Bennett the same way. Like, it adds some salt to the wound, and I think that's maybe part of that. Even seeing what Florida did is why the Leafs want to double down on not returning. I mean, kind of crazy. This stat here, and again, Sam Bennett, a bit of an anomaly with how good of a postseason he's having. He's always performed in the postseason, but 15 goals in these playoffs. Marner has 13 goals combined over 9 playoffs. So again, Sam Bennett's went deeper in playoff runs, so that's something to keep in mind as well. But that's because of himself. It's not, and of course, how good his team was. So it's interesting there. Vegas being one of the favorites. And again, the Andy Strickland report of Mitch Marner not returning to Toronto. He will be playing for a new team. This is still yet to be fully confirmed by Elliote Friedman or anyone like that, but it seems all but inevitable that not only is he going to leave, it's he's going to leave for a different reason than just the money. There's clearly some other things going on in here as he's not engaging with discussions, and maybe he was planning to leave all along. It seems like that's the case. Ladies and gentlemen, you guys have been fantastic. Thank you guys for your support. Let us know down below what your thoughts are on this. See you guys later.